Fantastic. I would say that this is a conversation that one can never tire having. And it's a conversation that we must have until we realize the potential and the objective of what is envisioned under this one Africa, one common place, the freedom of goods and services and even people, the realization of the demographic dividend, the youth dividend, all the great opportunity that we speak of, and we're going to continue to speak here again. And Helen, perhaps maybe to begin with you, because I think everyone in this room understands and appreciates that infrastructure is critical to unlocking any form of smooth trade, specifically the AFCFTA. And perhaps maybe you can help us understand from your vantage point, what progress are you seeing in that regard, ma'am?
Thank you very much. So if you think about what the AFCFTA seeks to accomplish, I mean, intra-African trade on the continent is at about 14%. And the mandate of the AFCFTA is to increase that to 40% by 2040. There are three ways to do that, right? You can focus on liberalization of tariffs, right? But then there's also the infrastructure piece, because if people cannot move freely from one point to another, then the ultimate goal of the AFCFTA is defeated. And there's finally this logistics and transportation. Now the good thing is that Afreximbank supports the AFCFTA agenda across all of these three metrics that I mentioned. And I'll just go into details. So starting from improved border logistics, we understand that border markets is critical to delivering on the mandates of the AFCFTA. And we are committed to supporting that. A couple of years ago, and this was the first PPP model cross-border post in one of the busiest border posts on the continent, which is the Beit Bridge border post. Afreximbank supported the construction of the infrastructure and the digitalization of the border post to the tune of $70 million. Now, the impact of that border post has been phenomenal. Previously, it used to take about 65 hours to cross. That has now been reduced to 13 hours. It has created at least 3,000 jobs. Sure. And I'd like to emphasize that 65% of those jobs have been given to women. It's also improved the livelihood around the border posts, and livelihood that greatly impacts SMEs. It's made them more resilient. It has improved the infrastructure around there. So those are just one of the initiatives. And the good thing about Afreximbank is that we're not just financing, we're also supporting initiatives that are committed to the improvement of AFCFTA along those three core areas that I just mentioned. A couple of years ago, we launched the payment, the PAPS network. And the importance of this is, if you're going to try and improve regional trade, people need to be able to trade freely in currencies. I want to be able to sit in Egypt. I live in Egypt, by the way, but I'm Nigerian. I want to be able to sit in Egypt and sell my goods to someone in Uganda and not have to worry about how I'm going to source for foreign exchange or receive local currency, because that is how my operating costs or where my operating costs are domiciled. So PAPS is a direct response to that. It allows free trading across the continent, and you get to settle your transaction in your local currency. So that reduces the dependence and the need for foreign exchange, and it helps to stabilize your local currency. So it's a win-win situation. We also identified a critical bottleneck in the movement of goods across the continent. Previously, if you needed to move goods, for example, from Nigeria to Burkina Faso, you would need to post a transit guarantee at every single country. So think about it, there are about 7 countries between Nigeria and Burkina Faso. That's 7 transit bonds. So how do we do that? We've partnered with ZEPRI, right? And we've launched a $1 billion transit guarantee scheme that essentially allows you to post just one bond, and that bond gets you across all the countries. So obviously it reduces transport time, it reduces the nightmare, it reduces costs. And so those are some of the initiatives that we're doing, in addition to our traditional financing, which includes project finance solutions, guarantee solutions, advisory and capital market solutions, and finally, project preparatory solutions. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And I think that the example of Baitbridge is an example of what a working solution can look like. And I think that the argument that is made is, how do you scale the success that perhaps has been achieved at Baitbridge? And so I just want to continue setting the context of what the current picture does look like right now. And perhaps, Madam Demeter, let me come to you with the opening context, because harmonization is key. And when you look at customs, they're often seen as the heartbeat of cross-border trade. It's something that you speak about quite often, I have seen. But maybe you can update us as to what are the reforms that are in need of being urgently addressed to keep the heartbeat of cross-border trade under the AFCFTA strong, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Harmonization is key, like you said. And that is the overall objective of the AFCFTA when it comes to customs. It is really about harmonization of processes and procedures. And so what the AFCFTA has done is that it has established a very strong legal framework. Because then within the AFCFTA agreement, you have an annex on customs cooperation and mutual administrative assistance that then enables customs to exchange information. You must understand with me that information is key. Sure. If the other customs administration know what it's about to receive, it enables them to act faster and act in accordance with rules. It also does have an annex on trade facilitation that then talks about interventions that are then really needed to support trade. Because it's not about the agreement. The agreement establishes the legal framework, but then there are interventions that are needed then to support the movement of goods. It also has a full dedicated annex on transit, governing the transit regime within the continent. And one of the things that harmonizations that have taken place is that we have the AFCFTA transit document, so that you don't have a different transit document at each border post that you cross. The Council of Ministers adopted it at the 16th Council of Ministers meeting. So we have an AFCFTA transit document as foreseen by the agreement. And then it gave the foundation for us then to have the regulation on the transit guarantee scheme. Because then we are working on the transit guarantee scheme with our Afrexim Bank. She has already mentioned, the challenges of having to post a bond at each border that you cross. And so we have now a regulatory framework that will govern the AFCFTA transit guarantee scheme. But we've also developed some digital tools that help customs, the harmonization within customs procedures. One of it will be the AFCFTA e-tariff book, because then we have the tariffs online. So you can access it virtually from your mobile phone, and then you can assess the tariff that is being to your export market. What tariffs would you be paying? And then you would also be able to pull out the rules of origin for that particular tariff line. So as a trader, you are prepared before you ever send your goods. As a customs officer, you have this your mobile phone access to then the tariffs that you're supposed to be taking. So that's the e-tariff book. We are also working, which has really progressed, on the e-certificate of origin. We no longer want paper documents pushed. So we are trying to make the AFCFTA certificate of origin an e-certificate of origin, so that you can sit in the comfort of your country, push the certificate of origin to a central platform that the AFCFTA is developing, and then the AFCFTA will push it to the destination country. And of course, this then helps, and then it really cuts on time and some bureaucratic bottlenecks. So we are working on that. And then the other one is the one that we've already talked about, which is the single bond guarantee, which would also operate through a platform. And so we are also, these are areas that we have managed to harmonize. But then we are also harmonizing other areas, the authorized economic operators. We want mutual recognition for the authorized economic operators, so that once an operator is recognized in the country, to be recognized in another country. So you don't have to go through the processes all over again.
Sure.
Thank you.
No, you have a lot on the go, and I think that many people will appreciate the fact that Rome is not something that is built in a day. It's something that will take time. But you made reference to quite a number of data points, data being where I want to pick up on. Because, Stephen, this is where you come in. They often talk about data or the digital world, as it were, as being an invisible bridge to harmonization in some examples. And both of you, yourself and Helen, did mention the guarantee scheme, and I do know that your company has been a signatory of one of those deals in the recent past. So maybe just talk to us about data and digital technology more specifically, sir, and the degree to which it is currently improving some of the logistics and infrastructure bottlenecks on the continent right now.
Okay, so the digital platform, centralized digital platform that have been mentioned earlier, allow the information to be transferred between different countries. Okay, share the information that you have. That is the digital platform that enable automation. So you do not need the carrying agent or transporter to repeat the process from border to border. That will slow down actually the time that you spend in the border to clear the custom document and so on and so forth. To further improve this automation, we add in different technology like OCR, okay, that able to recognize driver, okay, able to recognize number plate, able to recognize container number, so that the driver can actually now, the border station can actually now have a green lane. Okay, once you have been recognized, you can be passed through all the way without needed to stop. So if that can be done, you can now cut down the time that you have to spend, okay, on the border station, maybe now, maybe one day, for a driver to run around from one department to the other. Now everything is complete by recognizing the face, by make sure that the document is correct at the point of origin. Then you can now all the way cross for every single country or border station that you pass through.
Sure, sure. We'll come back and maybe highlight further examples in the next round of questions. But Benjamin, to bring you in here, so because ultimately moving goods around is a risk, and risks need to be covered, as it were. And so maybe you can talk to us from an insurance perspective, what we're trying to do here in terms of unlocking further infrastructure development, further regional integration on the continent, where your insurance, reinsurance lens, sir, to the argument on how that can better be achieved.
Thank you, moderator. Good afternoon. Yeah, so essentially the infrastructure is critical in the sense that information is key. The biggest risks as you move the goods, you have the truck itself, which has risk. You have the driver, which is potential source of risk. Then you have the biggest problems, roadblocks at the border posts. So all these are opportunities where risk management can be enhanced. So, for example, in East Africa now, they have what they are calling the electronic cargo tracking system,
Sure.
which then enables you to see the goods as they move across the border. So that obviously reduces the risk in a very significant manner, because in the event there is an accident, there is a rerouting or anything like that, you are able to see. A second problem, which has been over time, which has been source biggest risk to underwriters like insurance companies, it is the border. If without data sharing information, imagine a scenario where you have technology where you can know what goods are landing at a port like Mombasa, maybe a month before. And then the port system and the custom system is able to see and track these goods as they get to the border. By the time the truck gets to the border, we already know what is on board and what is passing. Now, insurance company gave a bond, or what we are calling the single guarantee bond, from the port for custom duty. As soon as the truck passes that border, that liability extinguishes. So you can imagine from the insurance company, the risk management part is better because the ability to know the liability has extinguished for that voyage is important, because then it means that carrier can be able to get another bond because he has already, the liability has expired, and you are able to track it across. So the essential thing about infrastructure, one can see it in three. There will be physical issues, which is like making the tracking system, that's important, making sure that data sharing is working well, and making sure that, and these days we have what we call the one border stop posts, where essentially as soon as you land, goods pass by, we are efficient. That will help insurance companies to be able to monitor their liabilities. But most importantly is having people, because infrastructure is always not physical, it is not even the data itself, it is training people to have the right attitude towards trade, to have different attitude towards different types of traders. Not the big companies, also in East Africa we call them mama bogas. You know, the people who cross over with the goods, carrying on boda, which is a bicycle, having a positive attitude to facilitate their trade, because they are critical to the economies of our region. So that's what I would see as infrastructural development, which will help risk management.
I guess if we, just moving on to the second round of questions, and Benjamin, starting with you this time, if I phrase the question differently, you've got a couple of instruments that the development finance institutions like African Bank have put onto the table to make it easier and less risky for traders to trade. I suppose big business, small business as well. You've got some of the innovations that are happening in the digital space that are increasing the availability and access to data. One can argue that a lot more can be done, but there's a lot more on the table. And I guess if we look at the price of insurance right now, sir, with all these instruments to help guarantee the risks, to help guarantee a bond, as it were, is it positively impacting the price of insurance for companies big and small who are looking to increase their trade across the continent, sir? And can that be improved?
Certainly. It's a good question, because early in this year, we launched the Trans-Africa Board Alliance. We call it TABA. This is a partnership between ZEPRI and Afrexim. And essentially, what we set out to do is to make it possible, bringing on board infrastructure of technology, bringing on board risk capacity. Because to underwrite that risk across Africa requires a lot of capital. So that TABA brings in that capability. But just for your information, insurance price is an accurate experience.
Okay.
We price based on what is our past experience, or what has the losses been like. Once technology improves, once the throughput is fast, once we monitor with those custom areas where the goods are being locked and all that stuff, the experience or the loss experience will suddenly go down.
Okay.
And once that goes down, the prices of insurance goes down.
Okay.
And that certainly improves the ability or encourages or makes the cost of trading across the border cheaper.
Okay. Helen, I'm coming back to you. Maybe just in simple terms, if you can explain one of the instruments that you did speak of, one of the innovative tools, as it were, that Afreximbank has piloted in order to guarantee and back up the risk of these big businesses, small businesses that do business on the continent. It's the guarantees and the transit bonds. Can you maybe in simple terms just break down practically how they have been working and who can access them?
Okay. So I'm going to ask Zepri to help me out
Yeah.
if I need help. But I mean, the way we've set it up is essentially open to anybody who sees the need and who is actively involved in transportation, movement of goods across the continent. It is posted as a single bond, like I mentioned. Zepri, being the insurance firm, is literally the face.
Okay.
What Afreximbank is doing is backstopping it behind the scenes with Zepri. It's $1 billion. I believe the maximum bond amount, correct me if I'm wrong, is up to $10 million for each bond.
All
That's
right.
the maximum.
Okay.
And I think it's a very fair amount given, you know, the research that we did to support that and arrive at that amount. And the idea is that because 41 out of the 55 countries in Africa have signed up to the AFCFTA,
Sure.
it was very easy to convince them that, look, if you really say that you're supportive of the AFCFTA, and if we have identified that the movement of goods and services is a bottleneck and an impediment to the implementation of the AFCFTA, you need to agree as a country that you will accept this one bond that is being posted by the transporter moving across the country. And then that is what we've done. And, you know, and that goes, you know, along with our mandate to improve trade facilitation. So it's not just providing the instrument, but also working with the government to ensure that they are aligned in what we're trying to accomplish. And I'll just add that, you know, at the time the AFCFTA was being launched, you know, one of the issues that was raised, especially by the African countries, was the potential loss in revenue, right? Because when you open your border posts, then obviously goods are coming in freely. It may stifle your local economy. So there was that very genuine concern. So we said, okay, how do we give African countries the comfort that whatever revenues they are losing is fully compensated for and can be recouped once or as the mandate of the AFCFTA is implemented and as, you know, activity picked up. So we've launched a credit fund. It's a $10 billion AFCFTA adjustment fund.
Sure.
And I emphasize on the word adjustment because you're trying to make them whole, the countries that could be losing out with the implementation of the AFCFTA. And we've mobilized it with about $10 million, which essentially is to facilitate, you know, conversations and getting people to the table to agree on how exactly things would work. The idea is that this fund will be used, and the mechanics are still being worked out, but when the fund is fully operational, it would be used to somehow compensate the countries who feel that they might have lost revenues from signing up and opening up their borders.
Okay, because I asked the question around access as well and how companies can, you know, sign up for such instruments with intent. Because if we do look at a lot of the business and commerce activity on the continent, it's a lot in the informal market. And Stephen, I'll ask this question to you as a follow-up because if you look at the informal market as well, there's question marks on the level of digitization that is currently present in that market. And therefore, as a build-up, what kind of innovations are there or do you see forthcoming that can potentially help increase the level of digital inclusion in the informal market such that they are able to also access some of the opportunities of a broader regional and cross-border trade?
Okay. What we see for the border trade or to be improved, one thing for sure, I think the currency. Currently, the biggest barrier for the trade will be the currency. So what happened is that the driver is from country A. They have to simply cross maybe country B, country C to deliver the cargo. So in between the journey, okay, so because of the currency barrier, what they have to do, they have to convert to other forex. Okay, every single country you exchange the forex, and I think the rate for the forex between two country, African countries, normally is not so good. So I would recommend that if possible, enable the use of local currency, okay, in different country, okay, simply by harmonize the digital wallet.
Sure.
Okay, so that because these drivers don't spend a lot of money, but this small little money, which is a lot, because there's a lot of drivers that crossing. Okay, they need to eat, they need to pay toll, they need to pay other expenses, sleep, and so on and so forth.
Sure.
So with this local currency to be enabled in other countries, that will help. Okay, the spending and also to ease the entire process.
Sure. Okay, so it all boils down to the money as a very important enabler of activity. I'm told that we have around 5 minutes left, and perhaps we finish it off with a closing remark on maybe one or two things that, if changed, could certainly accelerate the level of African infrastructure right now and the level of regional integration. And Madam Demita, maybe to give it to you.
Since it's a closing, all I will say is that infrastructure is very key. Otherwise, then the agreements that have been negotiated will just be just another document. And we don't want that for the AFCFTA. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
And the perfect point in which to close, and I do apologize for the shortness of time, but in essence, today we're speaking about bottlenecks and we are listing a few challenges, but they, if you flip the side of the coin, are also opportunities that can certainly help us realize the one Africa, stronger Africa that we aspire to. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, could you kindly assist me in thanking the panelists for their wonderful remarks as they helped us draw a close.